This market is far too big and far too sophisticated to move on announcements like what we saw with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Bitcoin is the only true global free market left in existence. Donald Trump wants lower interest rates, okay? But we know, and we've been saying on this show over and over and over again, I tweeted it out a month ago, the Federal Reserve is openly stated they will not listen to Donald Trump.
The financial system is at a breaking point, and Bitcoin is at the center of it all. The US government has confirmed a Bitcoin-only strategic reserve, while $10 trillion in debt needs to be refinanced this year. But here's the real story. Bitcoin isn't reacting to political headlines. It's responding to one thing: global fiat liquidity. Trump and his team are starving the markets of cash to force the Fed into rate cuts. With $2 trillion due in April alone, they need lower rates, or the system cracks. Meanwhile, Bitcoin remains the ultimate put option against fiat, thriving on chaos and liquidity shifts. When cheap money returns, Bitcoin will lead the way. Are we about to see a historic breakout? Stick around to find out. And before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Where do you see Bitcoin heading next? Let's get into it.
We got our strategic Bitcoin reserve, okay? It is a Bitcoin-only reserve. The crypto coin funds, they're not buying any altcoins. They're not thinking strategically about altcoins. In fact, the only strategic notion about the crypto stockpile is that they can be sold to buy more Bitcoin. The government is not going to be selling any Bitcoin. It's going to think about strategically buying Bitcoin. However, for those of you that think that Bitcoin is driven by announcements, you have been fooled, okay? This market is far too big and far too sophisticated to move on announcements like what we saw with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. This was no new information. This was no new purchasing of Bitcoins. This market, this is a global commodity market. If you think it's supposed to move on announcements like that, you have been fooled. Guys, Bitcoin is the only true global free market left in existence, okay? The price of Bitcoin tells the world in real time what the global community thinks about the current state of fiat liquidity. Super important. Bitcoin's price is not a reflection of what the White House thinks. Bitcoin's price is not a reflection of what Elon Musk thinks. Bitcoin's price is not a reflection of what Michael Saylor thinks. Bitcoin is the only global free market we have left, and it is the reflection and the expression of what the world thinks of fiat liquidity. Meaning this, Bitcoin is not a hedge. Bitcoin is a solution. Okay. I often hear people, Bitcoin's not acting like the hedge it's supposed to be. It's not acting like the hedge that gold is. Bitcoin's not a hedge. Bitcoin is a solution, meaning Bitcoin is a put option on the existing system. Bitcoin is long volatility. Bitcoin is monetizing chaos. Bitcoin is the best expression of currency debasement. Okay. Meaning when fiat liquidity dries up, Bitcoin leads. And Bitcoin expresses that first, and Bitcoin goes down. When Bitcoin liquidity loosens up and money printers go burr, Bitcoin leads. Bitcoin's the best performing asset in human history. Bitcoin goes up the most. Okay? So why is all of this relevant? Bitcoin's not trading off announcements from the White House. It's not trading off announcements from Saylor. It's not trading off Elon Musk's interviews on Fox. What's it trading off? Okay. Donald Trump wants cheap money. Another way to say that, the politically correct way to say that, is Donald Trump wants lower interest rates. Okay. But we know, and we've been saying on this show over and over and over again, I tweeted it out a month ago, the Federal Reserve is openly stated they will not listen to Donald Trump. Okay. I actually pulled up, there's a Bloomberg op-ed by Bill Dudley, the former chairman of the Fed of New York. Okay. And he wrote a Bloomberg op-ed in 2019. It's right here, titled, "The Fed Should Not Enable Donald Trump." Okay. The Fed is openly saying they will not support his monetary policy, this administration's economic plan. Okay. So what does Trump and Scott Bessent do? They are letting markets collapse. They are drying the markets up of liquidity. They are letting Elon Musk run rampant inside Washington, D.C. and cut all spending, fire everybody. Guys, whether it's spent through the government or not, dollars that are issued into the world find their way into Whole Foods, find their way into NFL merchandise, find their way into the real estate markets where you live. If Elon Musk is cutting trillions and trillions of dollars of fraudulent spending and firing lots of jobs, that crashes the economy. The Treasury and the U.S. government are pulling back liquidity and demanding from the Fed and from the long end, from the 10-year, cheaper money. Trump says, I want to reshore everything in America. That requires cheaper money. Another thing, you guys, just to put this in perspective, these guys need to reprice $10 trillion of bonds this year. They need to reprice $2 trillion in April alone. April is their biggest month. $2 trillion in April, $10 trillion this year. So markets hate uncertainty, and I've been saying it on this podcast over and over and over and over again. The near term is extremely uncertain. We don't know how tariffs are going to play out. We don't know how the government layoffs are impacting the economy. The economic data that came out on Friday, we still don't know. That economic data is not factored in all of the firing that's going on in DC. So government, Trump, Bessent, they are drying up liquidity because they want the Fed to cut rates. They need cheaper. Guys, if you had to refinance $10 trillion, do you want rates at 4.5% or do you want them lower? They need cheaper dollars. They need cheaper dollars. And I've been saying it on this podcast over and over and over again. But the thing that shocks me is that people think Bitcoin trades off of announcements in Washington, D.C. Of course it doesn't. It trades off global liquidity. It trades off fiat liquidity. And the U.S. government, Bessent, is not playing around. Let me read you guys a few quotes that I pulled up from Bessent in preparation for this episode. Quote, "The market and the economy have just become hooked, and we've become addicted to this government spending. There's going to be a detox period. There will be a little disturbance, but we are okay with that. It won't be too bad." Guys, they're telling you. This is a thing that shocks me logging into Twitter. They're telling you exactly what they're doing. Exactly what they're doing. The market and the economy have become hooked and addicted to this government spending. We need a detox period. Trump and Bessent, they need to get this over with, basically. Because, guys, if it wasn't going to be now, they could continue to perpetuate it in stimulus with liquidity. But when are they going to get their cheaper rates? When are they going to fix the 10-year? When were they planning on refinancing all this debt they have this year? The best time to go through pain, if you're this administration, is right now. And I've been saying that there's way too much uncertainty, way too much debt to refinance, way too much beef between Trump and the Fed. We are living in fiscal dominance. You cannot, if you're the Federal Reserve, you cannot have your own opinion while the U.S. is $37 trillion in debt. Your opinion doesn't really matter anymore. Sorry. Doesn't. These guys got $10 trillion to refinance. Sorry. So I'll say the same thing on this podcast as I have the last few weeks, guys. Short term is going to be volatile. It is. There's way too much uncertainty. No one knows. I mean, all these guys are running around touting tariffs everywhere. It's obvious. It's obvious what they're doing. They're literally going on television and telling you the market and the economy have become hooked. We've become addicted to government spending. There's going to be a detox. There will be a little disturbance. We're okay with that. It won't be too bad. Now, once they get their cheap money, it's all aboard dollar debasement, weaker dollar, higher assets. But they have to lock in the cheaper money. They're not going to finance this entire administration with these rates this big. And you've literally got the former Fed of New York, the president of the Bank of New York, op-ed, Bloomberg, the Fed shouldn't enable Donald Trump. The central bank should refuse to play along with an economic disaster in the making. Okay. I mean, these guys, like Bessent and these guys are going to, okay, fine. You don't want to give me the cheaper dollars that we need to fix this country? I'll force you. Pax Americana will collapse as you know it if you don't start cutting. It's really, really simple. It's really, really simple. But I think the key point in all of this is Bitcoin is the only true global free market that we have in the world, okay? The price of Bitcoin tells the world what the global community thinks about fiat liquidity. Bitcoin does not trade on Donald Trump announcements, Elon Musk tweets, Michael Saylor convertible bond. It does not. One of the unique and rare utilities that Bitcoin has is a global expression of what the world thinks about fiat liquidity, meaning it's not a hedge, it's a solution. It's not a hedge, it's a solution. It's a put option on the existing system. It's long volatility. It's monetizing chaos. It's the best expression of currency debasement. And if Scott Bessent and Donald Trump are going to choke the Fed and choke global markets, stock market, the local economy here in America to get the cheap money that they need, Bitcoin, its utility that Bitcoin's going to be first and going to be the most violent because it's screaming at the world what's actually going on. So this is all absolutely normal, and I'm a little surprised that people are surprised. And you show me the cheap dollars, and I will show you a $500,000 Bitcoin. I've been saying it, and for everyone that's been listening to the show for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, I mean, I've been saying the same thing over and over. Not to be that guy, but man, it's got financial authorities will literally tell you what they're doing. There's not even room to debate on the internet. I mean, the Treasury, Bessent is telling you literally what he's doing. So anyway, you got to stay humble and stack sats. Do I think that this bull market is over? No, far from it. I think these guys have $10 trillion to reprice. I mean, you got a $2 trillion bill due in April. What do you want to do about that? And some guy named Powell's not going to play ball because he doesn't like the way you talk, or I don't know, right? I'm not trying to get political, but all right.